Recording. All right, well, hey everyone, thanks for joining us tonight. This is Rebecca Ruth, and I have Sean here to just talk to us this evening and share a little bit about his journey so far and his fashion story. Like I said, I've known Sean for, I think we said 9-10 years now.
Yeah, about 9 years, yeah.
So he's a great guy, great model, so I'm just excited for you all to hear from him. So Sean, go ahead.
Yeah. Hey guys, my name's Sean, last name Nguyen. I'm 29 years old, turning 30 this year, and I got into modeling when I was in college, around 2010. I met Rebecca in 2011. It was the end of 2010 when I got into it. Before I got into modeling or tried modeling, I never even thought I could even like be anything in this world at all. Like I was a super awkward nerd growing up. Um, I always stayed at home, didn't really do anything socialize. My hanging out with friends was like on AIM. Um, but yeah, I didn't really get into modeling until college when I wanted to become more like my friends that I grew up with in high school. I think some of you guys might have met him in other shows. His name is Mitchell Holloman. And then my other best friend, Phil, too. So growing up in high school, like they had like awesome fashion. And I kind of wanted to be like them, but I was kind of like definitely not into any of that at all in high school. And it wasn't until college where I was like, you know what, maybe I should dress a little better and not just wear basketball shorts all the time. So I tried to like copy like their fashion sense, and then from there try to like emulate how they like always seemed so composed and poised whenever they like stood, walked around. They just seemed so cool and had so much swag. So that's what got me into like wanting to try and like uh, do photo shoots and stuff with friends. A lot of my friends were at the time were getting into like photography, so I was like, oh, let's try and shoot something. And then it wasn't really until I saw Noah Mills. He's a runway model. He's done a lot of work with like Dolce & Gabbana and a bunch of other shows and designers. It wasn't until I saw his walk in a show where I was like, man, that dude walks like a boss. Like, I want to learn how to walk like that. Like, I want to have that kind of confidence where I'm just like walking down, like looking like super, super smug and everything, and still like killing it. And yeah, it wasn't until then that I was like, okay, I've practiced kind of posing and stuff like that with friends on camera, but I haven't like tried walking. I'm like, at this time, I was still like stiff and whatnot from having bad posture all these years. So it wasn't until then that I learned how to walk, and I was like, man, walking is actually really kind of hard. Like walking naturally and relaxed and confidently. um, I had to break a lot of habits. So like I definitely practiced just walking every day, just in a straight line back and forth for like weeks with a friend like critiquing me. And after that, I was like, you know what? I'm starting to get a little bit better at walking. So why don't I enter like fashion shows around college? So I went to VCU in Richmond, and it's known as a pretty big art school. And they had a bunch of shows going on throughout the year. Well, one of their big ones was Strut VCU. Um, that was a pretty big production where they performed it at the Siegel Center. So at the time, I was also in a dance group. So I auditioned for both my dance group and as myself for a model to walk in it. And it was so much fun. I was like, man, this is such a cool production. Like I get to walk and we get to like perform pieces and stuff like that. So it was through my experience that like joining a bunch of fashion shows at VCU that like really got me to really enjoy modeling and learning how to like present myself in the modeling like world, especially on runway. Um, Based on like what I had seen before on like Dolce and Gabbana and their fashion shows, usually their runway shows are like 7 minutes long, straight runway. The models just walk and then they turn around. But these shows, since it's full of like um, more like amateurs, and they have a lot of like story involved with their shows and like themes. they really encourage the models to like really pause and pose at the beginning of the runway, at the end of the runway, and like in between and all that stuff. So it really was cool, and a really good experience to like, I feel like, develop that ability to walk like that, throughout my years at VCU. Um, so yeah, like I joined, uh, started VCU. I did RVA Fashion Week. I did Diego's show. That's Rebecca's mentor. Um, Down in Lynchburg a few times, and that was a blast. And each time, I did that. Those were more like straight runway, so it's like more just walk or whatever, and then you're done. But you still post the key points. Um, I joined another fashion group in VCU called Group Moda. Now, that was a really fun type of fashion group because their runway shows were like split into scenes. So even though Strut VCU was like scenes and like a little story and theme here and there, we were actually telling like bigger stories. We had like dancing involved. We have choreography on the runway involved, and that really got to diversify the kind of walk that I could pull off, or the turns and all that stuff. And I thought that was pretty sick. So with all that experience, I definitely gained a lot of confidence throughout the years, as a model, especially becoming a returnee model for these shows every year. Um, every time you come back, it's like, oh, it's like a reunion party. Like everyone is like, hey, and then you end up doing better. You learn from last year, like how things went, like how the pictures turned out. Oh man, did I hold the pose long enough? Do I need to try a different pose this year? Oh man, I need to try a different pose each for each designer thing. So you end up being forced to become like really creative so you can entertain the crowd, because that ends up being kind of what these shows are about, more so than like on the straight fashion shows where it's just you are, basically a walking hanger for the garments, and you're just showcasing the pieces. Um, so yeah, that was my life all the way up until like I graduated college, 2012. I graduated. I ended up working for the government, and for the first few years, I decided to like take a break from modeling. Like I almost retired basically. I ended up getting in a long-term relationship, and modeling was no longer on my mind for a while. Like I would come back every once in a while to do shows, like for Diego, once again, like when he decided to do one in 2013. Um, but yeah, it was until like 2015, 2016, where I decided, like, you know what? I'm single, so what's the next thing I want to try and do in life? I was still big into dance, so I was like, all right, I'm gonna push all my artistic sides that I have been kind of holding off on, while I was just like mainly working and like getting used to working life after college. So fast forward to 2016, I ended up moving to New York City, and then I ended up signing with an agency called BMG, and that's where I've been with until now. I live in LA now. I just moved January 1st, and I arrived January 3rd. So that was a wild drive, by the way. But yeah, so I ended up signing with them, and I was under their fitness division, their um, editorial vision, and their commercial vision division. Sorry, because they had just acquired a smaller company that had mainly fitness. So I tried to do all three parts, but it ended up being that I was a better fit for them for commercial jobs. So um, I ended up doing some castings my first year there, but never really booked anything until the second year I was in New York in 2018. Um, so first year, I guess since I wasn't booking anything, I was getting kind of nervous. I was like, man, what did I move up here for? Like, I thought, like, even at the worst, if I was a poor, starving like model, I could at least, get something. But luckily for me, I had my government job to rely on to help pay the bills in the meantime. And I kept myself busy doing other things like weightlifting and dance as well. But yeah, fast forward to the second year, it was in 2018 that I got my first gigs. Um, the first one being Angry Orchard. That was for a commercial that ended up being, I guess it was regional or national or something. You can barely see me though. It's like so. It's like whatever. Like you just see like the shirt that I had. That's all. I could point it and be like, yeah, that's me. But you'd be like, whatever. Um, I end up also doing a GQ fit. So usually when they like invite people to interview for magazines, before they like set up their wardrobe, they test out the wardrobe to see how it like would fit on someone with a similar build. So I got to do that, and I thought that was pretty cool. Um, Two other big things that I had in 2018 was Project Runway. I was able to walk as one of the models for their Elton John special, which was like awesome because they usually don't have many male models come in at all for their show because it's usually designed for females. And then also Boarding Pass New York City, which was a local bag company in New York City that has some bags featured in like J. Crew. I did a small gig for them, and it ended up being featured on the J. Crew Instagram, so I thought that was pretty cool. In terms of 2019, it wasn't as exciting of a year in terms of gigs and stuff, but I ended up walking for Mac Cosmetics at the New York Pride Parade, and then I just did a Crunch Fitness commercial. So yeah, that was pretty cool. So based on my experience modeling up in New York City, it seems like most of my gigs that I've landed seems to be pointing more towards acting. So since I moved to LA, that's what I'm thinking of pursuing now that I'm here. Because I feel like most of my work is usually commercial. I feel like getting into acting more would definitely better give me the tools to uh, land the auditions and stuff. So yeah, that was a short run through of my um, career in New York and before. Um, what else?
So, first of all, thanks for sharing. But tell everyone how we discovered you, because I think that's a fun fact that people should pay more attention to.
Oh yeah. So Diego found me on Model Mayhem, and fun fact about Model Mayhem is like even if you don't feel like it's useful now, you should still use it because that's actually how I got my job, my gigs for Project Runway and for Boarding Pass New York City. And I feel like if I pushed Model Mayhem more, people would actually find me more as well, and I probably would have even more gigs. Which brings me to another point too. Like even if you have an agent, it's great to have an agent, but I think it's you still have to hustle yourself and like put yourself out there and find all these auditions and stuff like that as well via Actors Access and casting networks and all that stuff, or Backstage Pass or whatever. Um, at the time when I was first signing, I thought that usually my agency, they told me to not like self submit because and to always run it through them if I find any kind of gig or anything because they were always trying to get me like the better paying jobs and not just being like an extra for like a low price when they'll and being obligated to do that gig while missing out on a bigger kind of opportunity. So that's why I didn't push as much. And I think also having a full-time job ended up me not pushing as much as I could have. Because to be honest, in the auditioning world, it seems like a lot of models that I know, like they consistently audition like 4 times a day, multiple times a week. And I'm like, geez, That's crazy because like I definitely didn't audition that much. So the fact that I ended up getting what I got was actually pretty good because usually the chances of you getting a call back is pretty low, and you getting a booking off that callback is low as well, just because there's such a large pool of models and stuff like that. Um, so even though like you're not selected or whatever, like definitely don't take that as like oh man they really don't like me or whatever, because it's like it's you got to take that with a grain of salt because everyone else is also hitting the same low numbers as well. Like you almost kind of like never quite know what they're looking for. Like sometimes, like usually on the auditions that I got, I was like, yeah, I nailed that one out of the park. But the rest of them was like, what? That was weird. Like, what did they make us like do? Or like, what did they ask of us? Or like, you really didn't have much opportunity to like really shine and stuff. So, based on things like that, I would say if you can, definitely try and find uh, like either acting classes in New York that might have that might offer like how to perform auditions or nail auditions and stuff like that, because I feel like that would be really helpful. And that's something I'm looking forward to doing in LA as well. Um, yeah, what else?
Yeah, so I like that. What I like about your story so far is that you're, like you said a few minutes ago, like you had a full-time job and you were modeling kind of, I guess you could say like a side hustle at first, but like if you were doing this full time, like you said, you'd be out there like every day pounding the pavement, like chasing after it. And yeah, the more you're out there, especially in this industry, the more rejections you're gonna get. That's just kind of how the math works in this industry. So one of the big things, one of the whole points of this group is help, supporting each other as we go through that, because that constant like, no, you're not what we're looking for, no, you're not, you're not this, you're not that, we were hoping for this or whatever it is. And it is such a big pool, but it's hard sometimes to not take that personally and to feel like, oh, there's something like wrong with me, that they didn't pick me. And it's like, no, there's not anything necessarily wrong with you. It's just maybe you're a better fit for something else.
Yeah,
So like
that's,
how, you seem to have a very like, that's just your nature. That's your personality. You're very like, you're very like chill, kind of cool, calm. You kind of take everything with a grain of salt. But like, what is, especially the year, I forget what year it was, but especially the year when it was kind of slow for you, like, how did you deal with that? Like, during that year when there wasn't really much popping up for you.
yeah. I mean, luckily, like I said, I had my side hustles to rely on. Like I started a fitness company to coach online and all that stuff, and that resulted from me really trying to compete in weightlifting and whatnot, and meeting um, like an international coach and becoming friends with him, and then um, yeah, starting that, and then just traveling for dance and stuff. So I kept busy doing those things. Um, so I was like, yeah, even though this is not succeeding, I remind myself like right now where I'm at, this is okay. And like, kind of back to what you were saying, like you could literally do everything you could have done for the audition, but if they're not looking for that, then what can you do? Like, I mean, it's just not for you. The part wasn't for you, and that's fine. The nice thing about nowadays is like the industry is like really diversifying. So what they're looking for, even though you may not fit something specifically now, you could probably fit something later. And that's the nice thing too about like doing commercial modeling, is that a lot of people think like, oh, if I model, I have to be a certain like body type, certain image or whatever. But that's not true. Like you could be almost any age. You could be um, all kinds of body types. They're always looking for someone to fill a certain role to demonstrate a certain message that they say. And like, don't get me wrong, like some of the auditions that I feel like the casting lines could be like kind of hurtful. Is like not looking for model types. I was like, "Ugh," I mean, like I thought I was a model type, but why am I getting submitted? No, you can't. You can't really take like offense by anything that like they say or whatever. That's kind of like that's just how they and their inside like communicate with each other. Like this is what they're looking for, so they know. So the casting directors know exactly. Okay, this is what we're gonna try and shoot for because this is what the client wants. But yeah, like even if you might not be the fit for that job now, that's fine. Just keep applying out there and just keep your exposure high, and you'll land something. And from there, you can keep building.
Yeah, I'm glad that you mentioned that. Like, just I can't talk. How diverse the industry has gotten. Because when I started shortly before I met you, the industry was completely different. It's only been what, like 10 years, and it's changed so much. So I think that the biggest thing that like I'm getting from you is like, don't necessarily like put yourself in a box. Like find, of course, your strength. Everybody has their strength. So if you're a runway model and that's like your thing, of course, work it, but don't be afraid to learn other skills and learn other things that you can add on to that runway career, because those additional skills and those additional things that you learn can help you land a gig for something else or some. I was told when I originally started, yes, I was a model originally, guys. I'm not going to get into my story though right now. I was told I was too short for the runway, right? So Tyra Banks has now changed that, but I'm saying that's what I was originally told. So I got really discouraged, and I was like, oh, fine, I guess my modeling career is over before it's even started. And it's like, no, like go to commercial, like you said, like go do something else, so there's a lot of different things out there to do. Just don't get discouraged and like leave yourself just in a box and like this is all I can do. There's so much out there, if you're willing to kind of explore a little bit. So yeah, I really like that you mentioned that. Well, I don't really have any more questions, but is there anything you want to leave us with?
Yeah, I mean, I was gonna build off of what you said. Like,
Oh,
definitely don't box yourself into anything, because like most models that I know have like they're either like stuntmen, they're also actors, they're also dancers like me. Some of them are singers and whatnot. So you can get so many different kind of roles that they're looking for based on that. And a lot of things are actually they ask you for like a lot of skills that you might have in sports and stuff like that, or like your background growing up. Like, were you in band? Can you play an instrument? Can you throw a football? Like, do you fit this type? Can you play tennis? We're looking for boxers. We're looking for basketball players. Um, so yeah, like don't be afraid to tap into like things that you used to do in the past before modeling, because it's all relevant. Like everything in your life is relevant, because a lot of what they try and do with these like commercials is they're trying to make people more real and like relatable now. So like it taps on like life in general. So when you're doing things like auditions or modeling, like just if you ever feel like you're lacking confidence, like tap into whatever you feel like you own in life, and then just like tap into that mentality. Like for me, if I were to walk on stage, before I was confident walking on stage, it was like, oh, I can tap into dance. Like I was pretty confident in like doing freestyle, so like walking is easier than that. Or so it was like things like that. And like what you said, like yeah, like before when I first entered New York, I definitely only wanted to be a runway model because that was literally all I did leading up to it. Um, but after a while, I thought like, oh man, maybe I'm not a runway model anymore. But then I ended up landing Project Runway, so I was like, oh, that's a runway. So yeah, like you really never know where you'll end up being. So just be like really open to it and just work on like everything basically, where that you can get your hands on, and it'll all end up adding and being for the better for you.
absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Sean, I really appreciate you jumping on here and chit chatting with us a little bit. And yeah, just hearing more about you. Fun fact, we just figured out, Sean and I just figured out that, did we go to the same school? We just grew up like or in the same area and we didn't
We grew
know.
up in the same area, yeah. Mitchell that went to
Yes.
your area,
Yeah, so
like the school in
Mitchell,
your
the
area.
Mitchell that we're talking about, he's part of this group. That's Mitchell Holloman. He walked for 7:07 in the Runway to Life show last October. So Sean and Mitchell are really, really great friends. So Mitchell and I actually went to the same middle school, high school, and stuff. But yeah, we all grew up in the same area, and we didn't know it till about like a week ago.
Yeah, that's that's so wild.
All these years we didn't know that we grew up in the same area. So fun fact there. But yeah, thanks so much, Sean, for jumping on. And I appreciate your time. I appreciate you just being transparent and just talking to us and keeping it real. And I look forward to hearing more about what you're doing out there in LA.
Yeah, sounds good. And if you guys have any questions, just feel free to ask me in the group. I'll definitely hop on and respond. So, yeah, nice to meet you all.
All right, thanks, Sean.